There's been a lot of debate as to whether buying your own house is actually a liability or an asset. Many people say that buying a house is an asset and that it's silly to be renting when you can just buy your own house. But others say otherwise. Let's debunk this once and for all. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are all doing really well. If you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Sanjna and I talk all things personal finance. Now, as you can tell by the title of today's video, we are going to be talking about the much debated topic as to whether buying your own house is an asset or a liability. So, Robert Kiyosaki, as many of you would already know, he's a very successful American businessman and most commonly known as the person who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He states that many financial experts say that buying your house is an asset, but Robert Kiyosaki believes it's a liability. So let's delve into this a little bit further. If you're watching me for the first time, I'm going to share a little bit about my story. So I own 3 investment properties. That is 1 standalone house and a duplex, which I earn rent from both sides. People always ask me why I always purchase more investment properties when I can actually buy my own house. Now, the reason is I am young. I don't want to live in a house just yet. I don't want to have to deal with mowing the lawn, being an adult, and really just adulting, because I just feel that if you live in a house, it really does confirm that you're an adult, and I'm not ready for that part of my life just yet. Secondly, it's not a good financial decision. We'll talk more about that later on in the video. I'm currently making more money now than I have ever been when I was working my 9-to-5 job. So I want to be able to purchase as many income producing assets as possible so that I can purchase my own house or build my own house, essentially debt free or with little to no debt. Who wants to be paying down a mortgage for the next 30 years of their life and live with mortgage stress? Definitely not me. And for that reason, I am rent vesting. So rent vesting is where you live in an area that you like and it's suited to your lifestyle without compromising, but you are also able to invest on the side as well because you've got enough income to be able to invest in assets like cryptocurrency, stocks, real estate. It gives you that freedom. Now let's define what an asset and what a liability actually is. So an asset is something that provides positive economic value. A liability is quite the opposite. It's something that you always need to pay off. Let's talk about the 3 different ways that you can buy real estate. Firstly, you can obviously buy a house for yourself. This would be a house that you choose to live in. This would essentially be deemed as your forever house. Now, the argument that people have and the reason why people choose to buy their own house is because they believe that you are building your own equity and you're not having to pay for someone else's rent. That can be true, but you can't consider that as a blanket rule for everything. There's some things that you need to also consider. When you buy a house, you need to put down a 20% deposit. For example, if you look to buy a house for $600,000, I'm talking about Australia here, we know that the Sydney house market is definitely increasing and $600,000 is actually quite low, but let's just go with it for the sake. So $600,000, you'll need a 20% deposit, which is essentially $120,000 to even be able to get considered for buying your own house. Now remember, when you buy your own house, most people usually don't take this into account, but you're going to have to pay for your own maintenance and repairs and the upkeep of the house as well. You've also got to pay for property taxes, which is obviously like your stamp duty. You've got to pay for insurances, council rates, water bills. These are usually things that people also don't consider. So all of these expenses added up do put a significant amount of pressure on your financial situation. This, of course, is quite the opposite for renting. When you rent, you don't need to pay for any of these things. These are all paid by for your landlord because they own the property or apartment. Therefore, buying a property based on your savings and your income may not be a good decision for you financially just yet. When people tend to buy a house, they usually have a lot of emotion tied up with it. You want to be able to buy the house of your dreams, and therefore you're willing to pay as much as possible and go above your budget to get this done, which actually comes at a big price tag, and that too for an extended period of time, usually about 30 to 40 years. Because this is an emotional decision, buying your first home, You are going to buy something and have things added on extra to the house because it's going to be your forever home. And this, mind you, will also increase your living expenses. Most people don't realize this, but when they buy outside of their budget, and this tends to happen in a lot of cases, a lot of people are forced to actually sell their house a few years later down the track so that they can actually recoup some of the funds from their house, from the equity, and then they tend to downsize and actually live within their means. Secondly, buying a house will mean that you have a financial commitment for the long run. Therefore, buying a house may not actually be the right decision for you right now. So if you listen to what Robert Kiyosaki says, he says that a house is a liability. Let's talk about this further. Some people may think that yes, you're buying your own house and therefore you're building on your own equity. But mind you, this equity is only available if you actually sell your house. And a lot of people are not looking to sell their house. Buying your own house does put a lot of financial pressure in terms of cash flow. You are having to pay out of your pocket every single month towards that home loan. This definitely proves what Kiyosaki is saying, that a house is actually a liability because it is actually taking money out of your pocket every single month. That too for a very long time. Whereas if you think about it as an asset actually puts money into your pocket, not the other way around. Therefore, it can be concluded that a house actually is a liability unless you decide to sell it, which won't occur until at least 30 to 50 years, and that too if you even decide to sell it. But of course, if you have enough money, enough income, and you are able to purchase your current home now, in addition to paying the expenses and the monthly costs and yearly costs associated with buying a house, and you are able to maintain a high standard of living, then more power to you. The truth is, most families aren't able to sustain this and are usually under financial pressure for many years, and that leads to mortgage stress. This now brings me to my point around rent vesting. This is why we're seeing an influx of young professionals, young people like yourself and I, looking at rent vesting. This involves the process and the practice of buying investment properties. This is where you get people to pay for your mortgages when they give you rent, and this adds to your net worth instead of you building your net worth yourself. Also, if you think about it, if you buy your own house, you are having to work harder to pay that off so that you can increase your net worth. Honestly, who does that in 2022? We are so fortunate that we are surrounded by resources and successful people where we can learn about making passive income. Because if you think about it, if you lose your job, then you're also going to fall behind on your loan and your mortgage as well. Therefore, if you are investing in multiple properties at the same time, your net worth will increase because others are technically paying off your mortgage for you. And because your net worth is constantly increasing over time, you are able to accumulate more rental properties. This builds your net worth and also does increase your cash flow, which is the money that is left over after having to pay for maintenance, for council rates, water bills, etc. So let me provide you guys with an example. Say you have $50,000 in your savings account and you currently pay rent of about $1,200 a week. If you buy a house right now with that $50,000, which I'm not sure where you can and if it's something that's going to be in line with your standards, but say you do buy a house, you will have financial pressure to obviously pay that off. But if you buy an investment property and say it's a duplex like mine where I've got one mortgage, but I've got two people paying off that mortgage for me, and say the rent is about $1,200 on this side and $1,200 on that side, that's about $2,400 that I'm receiving in rent payments for the one mortgage that I've got, meaning you make $2,400 from that property. And let's say after all of the mortgage fees, management fees, any other fees and rates associated, you're left with about $500. Annually, that would be about $6,000. And say your mortgage is about only $1,200 a month. Essentially, that second rent that you are receiving is essentially free money. So if we calculate that annually, that's about $14,400, which will be added to your net worth in just that 1 year alone. As you can see, this cycle can actually be quite repetitive and you can continue accumulating more properties. Now, let's say you continue this cycle, then essentially your assets can pay off your dream house outright instead of you having to pay for that mortgage each month and be burdened with financial stress. And if your assets are able to buy this house for you, you are essentially financially free and independent. Isn't that a much better idea? Definitely sounds like it to me. Now, let's consider the options where you have actually already purchased a house. Obviously, that is a liability. Now, what can you do to make that house an income producing asset for yourself? One, is if you've obviously got a duplex, you can rent out the other side of the duplex, therefore you can live rent-free. Second option is to rent out a space in the house, like your bedroom, the garage. You can potentially put this up on Airbnb, and therefore you can generate an income that way, which will help to pay off your mortgage. Thirdly, a lot of people I have seen do this is they build a granny flat at the back of their house, and this provides them with an additional source of income, which would definitely help in paying down their mortgage. Now, as you can see, a house that you purchase is definitely considered a liability. If you think about it, it takes money out of your pocket every single month without giving you anything in return. Of course, you can think about it emotionally in that it is your forever home and this is what you've always wanted, but think about it financially. Could you maybe have upgraded that house if you just waited a few more years and you actually started investing now? Who knows? That is the reason why I am personally rent vesting, because it does not seem like a good financial decision for myself to be buying a house right now. This is obviously just what I'm doing and what works best for me. This video is definitely non-financial advice. I just want you to take this information with a grain of salt and just consider your options, because buying a house may not be the right decision for you just yet. If you want to follow me on my journey, then be sure to follow me on my Instagram and my TikTok account, Success by Sanjna, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Thanks, guys.